Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Small Talk on the Mats. And today's guest that I have is pretty exciting. He's a commercial real estate broker, CCIM, and a master of reinvention. We're going to go over this here in a bit, man. So he went to UNM to become a teacher, but after reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad and answering a classified ad, he found his path in real estate. So through the Great Recession and career pivots, he built a thriving industrial and office brokerage practice in Albuquerque with a simple philosophy, and that is, if the deal doesn't make sense for the client, he won't push it. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I introduce to you Ben Nolte.
Wow, Alex, I got to say thank you, man. That was a phenomenal introduction. I've been called a master of some things, but never a master of change or a master of whatever the fuck he said. So,
yeah. No, man. I like to make my guests feel special with the introductions, man, because it's first impressions are everything, bro. So
awesome.
Yeah, man. So I categorize my questions for you.
Sure.
So we'll stay on topic as best as we can.
Okay.
Without squirrel moments. And there might be a chance we do have squirrel moments. That's fine too.
All right. Sounds good.
But our first category is your early life and your identity. So to top it off, man, you were born at Fort Riley and adopted at a week old. So how has that origin story shaped your sense of identity and your belonging?
And also my mother's maiden name is Jehovahwitz, and the last four of my social are 4377. So now you know where I was born. Anyway, I'm kidding, man. Let's see. So, yeah, I think quite honestly, it this is something I guess I haven't really talked a lot about. Went through a lot of phases in my life trying to find out who I am, what I'm about, I guess trying to figure out where I belong, you know. And my parents were great. They, as far back as I can remember, told me I was adopted. I was probably like 5 when I knew or kind of understood what that was. And then I think, though, I always was kind of searching for where I did fit in and where I belonged. Went through a few phases of my life. I've lived many lifetimes in this life, and but I think it's good because it's given me perspective and the ability to connect with folks of all genres, in places. I'd like to say I can connect with anyone from the janitor to the CEO because I've got something in common with them.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's, first and foremost, I think. I guess I should have reviewed what I answered there so I'd have a better answer for you. But.
No, that's... I don't like to show my questions to my guests at a time because of this, right? It keeps you on your toes.
That way I'm bumbling like an idiot. There we go.
That's one way to look at it. But you saying that, no, you actually surprised me today when you were this morning's class when you were belting out those Spanish tunes, man.
Oh, yeah. Well, and so kind of taking a step back, you talked about in the introduction, I went to UNM to be a teacher of English as a second language, and I moved down here from Iowa, from the Midwest. My best friend, Miguel, he had moved to Iowa from California, but he was from Mexico City originally. And so I hung out with him. I did. Damn, I've got some bug in my nose. I did take some Spanish classes, but also, talking to his family and talking to other people, going to Mexico a few times. I spoke Spanish fluently, and then when I came down here, trying to speak Spanish to people, they're like, "Oh, my parents didn't teach me, bro." I was like, "Well, my fucking parents didn't teach me either, but I learned, right?" It's about priorities, but no. I've come to understand it's a very unique culture or cultures in New Mexico, I think, and there's probably some reasons their parents didn't teach them that I can understand. But yeah, so anyway, and when I was in college, I would get drunk and sometimes responsibly, always responsibly, but and sing Los Tigres del Norte, La Puerta Negra.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. So anyway, now you know a little bit. A little bit of that, and you wouldn't know it, but from the time I was probably, I don't know, I got into car stereos, I got into lowrider cars back in Iowa. So
oh shit,
I even had hydraulics, had 16 switches like Dre.
That's awesome, man.
It was a little too many switches, so I cut it down to 4 that were right on the dash, because 16 was like this big ass long box. It's like monstrosity. So yeah, I've lived a few different lives within my lifetime, and
that's super cool, man. The man of many hats. That's cool, man. So by 5th grade, you had already lived in 5 different places. So how did constantly being quote unquote the new kid prepare you for business and brokerage?
Yeah, I think always having to start over, walk into a room and be the new person, you get a little more comfortable meeting people and introducing yourself, being outgoing. And so it kind of forced me to master a reinvention, I think is what you said.
Yeah.
It forced me to do that. Not that I would not be true to myself, but which I probably wasn't, quite honestly, but it forced me to be able to go out, meet people. I think I've always enjoyed having a sense of humor. I was a pretty obese kid. I'd say that I was an Oprah eater. Like, I'd eat my emotions. Like, oh, you're having a bad day. Here's some cookies. Here's some cake.
Okay.
And so I got pretty fat. And so what I would do is use comedy to kind of deflect, to call out the elephant in the room. Because if I make fun of myself and then you make fun of me, that's okay, because I already did it. So
right.
But how that ties into business, I think that it just helped me with the ability to meet people, to read people. Sometimes I push the boundaries with things that I say, but you can almost feel and sense what is going to be okay and what isn't. Because, certainly you don't want to go out and just offend everybody. And
which is easy to do nowadays.
And generally I'm dealing with business owners, so they're not they're a little more calloused, not in a negative connotation, but they've got a thicker skin is probably a better way to say it.
Yeah.
So sometimes I've said things and didn't get a favorable response. I was like, okay, we'll just stop that. And more often than not, though, I'll say something like, and then they'll start laughing. So it really depends. But I like to. I guess I self-deprecate a lot.
Okay.
I think that puts people at ease. You can certainly take that too far with beating yourself up, but. If I say, hey, I'm the idiot in the room, it makes everybody else feel a little smarter, and so they'll be a little less self-conscious.
Okay. Yeah, that's a nice way to put it, man. So, growing up as the son of a preacher man with a rebellious streak, what did that tension teach you about authority, independence, and conviction?
Oh shit! Well, I mean, I was a latchkey kid. Like, my dad was pretty much married to the church, and he was also a chaplain in the Army. And so, if he was not doing things at the church, a lot of times, it was one weekend a month or whatever it is, and then every so often you'd have longer month-long training sessions or what have you. So, but I think what it did teach me, and my dad's a great guy. He's still alive. He is 81 now. His mother's maiden name is, I'm just kidding. His social is, go steal his identity. Don't steal mine. I shouldn't do that. He's my dad. That's kind of screwed up. But
I'm sure he'll enjoy laugh at it.
Well, we have the same name. This is kind of one of those squirrel moments. Like, so my grandfather was a David, and then his middle name, my dad is David, and his middle name, I'm David Benjamin, and then my son's David Isaiah. So we've kept that name, and that is a biblical name. Going back to your question, though, what it really taught me was to not be a hypocrite, or not want to be a hypocrite. And my dad's a great guy. That's where I started going down the path of talking about him. Very non-judgmental, very, even though he was in the Army as a chaplain, very much turn the other cheek and accept all sorts of people. And so I think that helped me not be closed-minded when it came to getting out there and meeting people. But I also saw so many things that had nothing to do with church or Christ or anything other than us being people. And so for a long time, I didn't even really dig into Christianity, the Bible, because I just had kind of a bad taste in my mouth. And when I was a little kid, I remember we were in church. It was a town, Humboldt. We lived there for 2 years. Loved it. It was like Goonies came out. We could ride our bikes all over. There was a dam. We'd go fishing. Like, you do whatever the heck you want, and come home at the end of the day. It was a good time. Pretty simple time in my life. But there was a pillow fight in this church classroom. I think there was like a luncheon or something going on. And some kid hit another kid, and the kid started crying. And some lady comes and pulls me out by my ear and takes me and my dad. It's like, he was hitting kids. I was nowhere near the freaking kid, but because I was the pastor's kid, like,
you got singled out.
Yeah. So, but having that really kept me from having my own relationship with God and Christ for a long time.
Okay.
Probably into the last 2 or 3 years is when I've gotten much more in search of and consistent with Bible study and that sort of thing. And so I think that's what it taught me. I mean, my dad was a great guy, worked hard, certainly did the best he could do for his family. So, I mean, I think, and growing up in the Midwest, there's that work ethic that you do the job, you do the right thing, try and be honest. But yeah, I guess that's kind of how that shaped me in some sense.
Okay.
And then also, trying to stand out because I was a preacher's kid and pretty fat kid. Sometimes trying to do some mischievous things to gain some notoriety, I guess, if you will. It's kind of a silly way to put it. But.
Yeah. Okay. So you were just testing the waters too at a point too. I mean, that's what I was going to ask you, is because, like, for any other parent that's out there that's in a certain profession, right? Like law enforcement, for example, if someone's dad's a cop, right? And the cop's always like, don't do this. I think that's a staple for kids wanting to rebel against whatever their parent is trying to oppose them of, right?
Yeah.
So
Rahmspringer.
The what?
Rahmspringer.
What's that?
The Amish people, they have this, because they live a very directed life without electronics and stuff, but once a year, they let their kids go off and just be crazy and get drunk and party.
Okay.
And so that kind of lets them experience that and get that out of their system, while the rest of the time still maintaining order and their way of life.
Something that they're definitely looking forward to.
For sure. Some don't ever come back. It's like, they've been gone for 3 years. But
you give them a taste of sugar.
But, I think, to your point, a lot of the folks I know that have been super sheltered and not allowed any iota of freedom or independence, when they do get that taste, a lot of times it's in college, they take it to the extreme because they haven't had the opportunity to try it out prior to that.
They've been caged in for so long.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. And so the last one on this category is moving from Germany back to Eastern Iowa is pretty much a big shift. So what lessons from those early cultural contrasts still stick with you?
Well, I would say, luckily I was a little kid at the time. And maybe I shouldn't say luckily, because if I was older, I think I would have had more appreciation, understanding, and memories of Germany. But, when we were there, we just lived on base. And so there were other, I guess, U.S. Armed Forces and their kids. So we were kind of all there together. We did certainly go off base. I remember riding a trolley to McDonald's. I remember they had these salt mines, and I sat on my dad's lap. We slid down into this mine, which was pretty cool. It was like a slide inside. We would go on what they called folks marches, And so those are hikes basically, and I think if you complete it, you get a medal or a pin or something. And I specifically remember, I must have been 3, maybe 4. I specifically remember like falling face first into a mud puddle and just being soaked.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it. I think I still have an affinity for gummy worms and Kinder eggs and those sorts of things, because those are like core memories. But we lived in, they were apartments. They weren't barracks, but they were apartments, and it was there on base. And at that point in time, I think it was in the early 80s. They'd had the Munich Olympics, and they'd had some other things occur, and so there was certainly concern of who was coming onto base and who wasn't. I mean, I was oblivious to all that.
Yeah. At the time, yeah.
I don't know why it just came to me, because we're talking about it, I guess. There was this kid, and we were outside of the apartment building. There's like 4 of us, and we had a hose and a water spigot, and we're just sitting there playing with the water. And for whatever reason, I thought it would be a good idea to just take it out and take a whiz on this kid. I could not tell you what the hell I was thinking. But I remember that happening. Like, well, we can wash you off with water. and the next thing I remember is I'm running up to the apartment we lived in, and my mom's there, and this just boom, 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 boom. This dude's dad was pissed.
Yeah,
I mean, I'd probably be pissed if someone did that to my kid too. For sure,
that's understandable.
I couldn't even tell you the kid's name, but if you're out there watching, I am sorry I peed on you. Not R. Kelly here, not into that. My apologies.
Well, it was so long ago. I'm sure it probably drifted in the back of his head, something he never wanted to remember.
Had years of therapy for that shit.
Oh shit! Let's jump into your education, man, and your career pivots.
Yeah.
You originally planned to become a bilingual education teacher.
Correct.
So, what changed when you stepped into UNM's School of Business?
Realistically, I had a year and a half of community college credits that I was transferring in. And so I got down here and I went to the School of Education. I said, hey, I want to get done in 4 years. I don't, college was a blast. I had a good time, but I didn't want to be there like 10 years for a bachelor's degree.
Yeah.
So I said, what do I need to do to get done in that time frame? And the counselor was super helpful and was like, well, what would you like to do? What are you into? I'm like, no, just tell me what I need to take to get done, and that way I can get going down the road with life.
Yeah.
And then contrast that with, I walked, and it literally was next door, the building next door to the business school, Anderson, and laid out the same scenario, and they handed me a sheet. They said, if you do X, Y, and Z and take these classes, you'll be done in 4 years.
Yeah.
And so I had an interest in business prior to that. I kind of going back to how being adopted affected me, I don't think I had the self-confidence initially. And I think what I've come to learn in years later is that I was a people pleaser. And so that can be a wonderful thing, but it can be a dangerous thing in the sense of spreading yourself too thin and just automatically saying yes to everything.
Right. Yeah.
Without thinking about it. And so went next door to Anderson, did that. I was probably a year and a half out from graduating, and I knew I did an emphasis on management information systems. And so I'd had an internship at Intel. I had an internship with the city at the solid waste department with their IT department, and knew that was not what I wanted to do.
All right.
But I was like, I'm not going to push it back another 2 years. And so I went ahead and got my college degree, Bachelor's of Business Administration, and then was going to go back based on reading that Rich Dad Poor Dad book and get my master's in accounting, also at Anderson.
Yeah, okay. That's pretty interesting. I tried maybe one course of business. What was it? Business administration, maybe? Yeah. So I did like a semester of that. And given at the time, I don't know, how old were you when you did all that? Do all that.
Oh shit, man! I don't want to tell people how old I am too. Did you tell them what year I was born? Maybe you did. I don't know. Anyway,
No,
no,
not yet.
I would have been. I would have been probably. It would have been my early 20s by that point. So,
Okay.
My dad was always of the mindset like, hey, you're going to go to college. And I had no clue what I wanted to do. So, I mean, to that end, I think I went through like 5 different majors.
Okay.
But so
right.
I was probably in my early 20s at that point to answer your question.
Okay. Yeah. So I was maybe late teens, early 20s too. I was like maybe 20 years old when I was doing business stuff. So, it was intimidating for sure. So props to you for going through with all that, man.
Oh, thank you.
So let's jump into the Rich Dad Poor Dad. So the book Rich Dad Poor Dad sparked your interest in investing. So what specifically about that book flipped the switch in your head for you?
Just having it talk about cash flow, assets, liabilities, and laying it out that it you could kind of utilize it as a roadmap to wealth if you wanted to do that. I did not realize until, and this was one of the things, my dad taught me again with being honest and straightforward, a price was what it was. And so I didn't know until I think I was 20 and my friend's dad went to help me buy a car. And he's like, oh, you don't have to pay him what's on the sticker. I'm like, what do you mean? It says it's, $1,000. The car costs $1,000. Like, no. You can negotiate. So, not pertinent per se to the book itself, but it opened up my eyes to business. It was inspiring. Kind of showed like, hey, I did this in this manner. If you want, you could do it that way as well. I was not in the military, the armed services. I did not do that. He was a pilot. Robert Kiyosaki was. And then, I don't know if he had got his master's in accounting, but just ended up understanding business. And it's a little bit of an embellishment of his Rich Dad and Poor Dad. I think his Rich Dad was actually another gentleman that even today continues to teach classes and do that sort of thing. So I don't know that it happened in the manner he said, but the principles are the same. Mm-hmm. And so it was inspiring and exciting. Even today I'll read it. I have my kid read it. I usually try and read it every couple of years just as a refresher.
Yeah, I think I need to do that, man. My mom handed me that book when I was like 12 years old, dude. And I was like, what the fuck am I going to do with this? You know what I mean? Yeah. I did read it because I was a reader. But at that time in my life, I'm not thinking about fucking investing in anything or, saving money. I don't even have a job at that age. So I went through the book and I was like, I think giving the book at that such young of an age kind of like put a bad taste in my mouth of wanting to do anything with money. I just wanted to have fun as a kid, right?
Yeah. So even as an adult, I think that I went through that. And then reality smacks you in the face, and you figure out you can't just live on a couch and play video games all day. What I had done for my son is I said, hey, you read this and give me a report on it, and I'll give you $100. So there was incentive behind it for him to do that, and I'll do that for graduates. Whether it's this book or The Richest Man in Babylon, I'll gift them a book and usually put some money in there. So do you give them the $100 would be nice, but do you give them like hey, come back with like a report? What did you learn? What did you get out of the book? Or not typically for the graduates. Just I don't put that on them. I think initially, and I've done this a lot. I'm super big into growing, learning, growth, self-improvement, and so a lot of times I would share things with folks with the expectation that they would be as geeked out by it as I am. Yeah. And then a lot of times they just wouldn't even probably look at it. And so then I'd be disappointed. So I stopped kind of giving it out with strings attached. Okay. Maybe mentioning that would be a good thing to do, but I don't do that with the expectation that someone's going to follow the same path I did.
Yeah. Because I feel like, let's use your son for example, right? You give him the $100 for reading the book. I feel like if there was some way I knew he retained any of that information, then I would compensate him.
Yeah.
Because, and not saying you did it the wrong way or the right way, but I feel like if my son came back to me and just handed me the book back and said, "Okay, Dad, I read it," and then I give him the $100, he didn't learn the damn thing out of it, I feel like it would be kind of, useless.
No, I made him do like a little like report on it.
Okay.
So now whether he retained that afterwards, probably not. I mean, shit, I studied and it went in one side of my head and out the other,
Yeah, there's a lot of brain dumping out there.
I passed the test, I'm good to go.
I do that in the Army, man.
Yeah.
I'll learn all this shit just to take the test and brain dump it.
Yeah, and I think that's learning to take a test versus like actually learning something. And so those are absolutely two different things.
Yeah, that's a whole different story, man, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, this is where things get interesting here. So you answered a newspaper classified ad that changed your life, man.
It sounds like I answered like this was before they had the internet.
Yeah.
Tinder and all that stuff was not out there. I answered a classified newspaper ad.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what did working alongside a real estate investor teach you that no classroom ever could teach you?
Yeah, and this is where experience, I think, trumps education, and especially now, you realize how commoditized like a bachelor's degree has gotten. I think that my son, so he's going to be a senior this year at Cibola High School. Go Cougs!
Yes, sir.
Smart kid. He's playing football. He doesn't have any intention of doing that post high school, but he absolutely could be a mechanical engineer. He's I don't know, his grades are good. Like he got, and that's another thing. This is deviating a little bit, but we do pay him for good grades. It's like if you're going to be in school and focus and play sports, not that he shouldn't have a job, but also like, hey, that is your job. And he can still get a job on the side. He still works and does other things as well. But where am I going with this?
It happens. Trust me, it happens all the time. Answering the newspaper ad and working alongside an investor.
Yeah, so he taught me the reality about things. And I think, when I was in college, I was Pollyanna and thought, the world is black and white and perfect and you're either good or bad or, until you actually do things and live life and experience things, you have no basis in reality of how things are. And so I think what specifically, and Scott Herrenberg was his name, always appreciate you, Scott, your whole family. Attention to detail. I think he's OCD and I'm not great when it comes to organization and detail. So he taught me that, how businesses operate and run, how you might look at finances, as you were talking about earlier as a kid. It's like, I just want to have fun and have some money. I remember when I was fresh out of college, I was like, man, if I can just have $20 every time I go to the ATM, $20, I can get into the club, I can buy a beer or two, I can have a good time. If I just had $20 in my account whenever I needed it, it'd be phenomenal. And not that is not phenomenal, but today $20 is not going to pay my mortgage. It's not going to get me gas. It's not, it's like the kids need something. So he taught me, a different way of looking at money. And I had gone to business school, but any school, the theory and the academics of it could be completely different in application, and it's going to be different depending on what company you work for, what market you're in, that sort of thing as well.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like, and given there's different types of learners, right? Yeah. There's people who learn best watching a PowerPoint. There's people who learn by actually doing the thing, right? But yeah, you're right. In a sense, at the end of the day, actually going through the process and the steps is the best way to learn, I think, rather than, just sitting down all day going through papers. So...
And actually now I know where I was going with my son. So my wife is adamant that, he does a 4-year school. And he could, he's also on like a robotics team. They went to World Robotics Championships in St. Louis this year. That's cool. They were one of 14 from New Mexico to do that. I'm like, if you want to go be an electrician and work for someone, if you want to go learn one of the trades, I would encourage anybody that doesn't know what they're doing, and I don't know how the hell you do at that age, especially, go to community college, go to trade school. Worst case scenario, you leave with a skill set that maybe you don't do it professionally, but if you need something done at your house, you can wire something up or figure something out. So
yeah,
that's my thought on that.
All right, I like it. So what were some early mistakes you made rehabbing and flipping homes that shaped how you analyze deals today?
Oh shit, many, I would say. So this is where, again, having guidance and having somebody that's been down that road before helps a lot, because they can save you some costly mistakes. I wouldn't attribute this to something I'm personally or was personally responsible for, but we had a rehab that we were doing. It was down off a bridge. I'm blanking on the name. Anyway, it ran north-south off a bridge. It was just north of bridge, west of the river. And we had two guys that were working there doing the rehab, and somebody came up and was like, oh, hey, we work with Scott or whomever. I don't even know. Maybe they were in on it, but they're like, hey, we need these materials for another job. So they just literally came and jacked all the stuff that they had gotten at Home Depot. I mean, it was probably like $1,500 in materials or something, or maybe a couple thousand.
Yeah.
And this was like back in the early 2000s, where mid 2000s, actually, I should say.
Yeah.
So that was one thing, like, know who's coming and going, and make sure everybody knows that who's supposed to be there or not. Costs. It's real easy, I think, putting a buffer on what our expectations are for costs. I think we tend to do those numbers in a best case scenario a lot of times, in anything. It doesn't have to be for rehabs. And so then if you run into any turbulence or one of your assumptions doesn't pan out, you need to have a buffer to be able to cover that difference. And so it's just a contingency plan.
Okay.
I think one of the things, and I don't know if you call it a learning lesson, I think I'd call it a learning lesson in grace. I had this countertop in the back of my truck. I had a Chevy S10, and we were going to put it in one of the storage units, so I was driving it over there and had it in the back. And it had a marble top. I think we just spent like $800 on it or something. It was nice. Mm-hmm. And so I turned the corner of this storage thing, and it's got a difference in levels on the ground. And so my truck kind of goes like this, and the thing just goes...
Oh, shit.
And fucking...
Shatters.
Granite everywhere, shatters. Oh my God, I was so scared. And Scott was like, man, mistakes happen. It's okay.
Yeah.
And I was sweating bullets. I was sweating bullets. Like I wasn't big balling. I was sweating bullets. And and he was like, mistakes happen. And so as far as that goes, I think just contingency planning. Again, I ended up going on my own and just kind of doing one or two rehabs or flips at a time. I think that's even, in my opinion and experience, probably more risky, because then if something doesn't pan out, it's not like you have 3 or 4 other houses to offset what doesn't turn out the way you thought.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't running it as a larger business. I think I was just, when I went on my own in 2007 and did that, and I remember thinking for a while, like, okay, I want to go on my own. And New Mexico is unique as far as having like redemption rights. If a property gets foreclosed on, a homeowner still has those rights, but they can also assign them. So I'd go out and I'd knock on doors. That was one of the skill sets I learned, actually. This is different than what you asked, but go knock on doors. Somebody's getting their house foreclosed on, and talking to them about that, and or trying to track people down if the house is vacant. Sometimes they don't want to be found.
For sure.
And so, I guess that was kind of gutsy. I didn't have the confidence I have now. I think I was much more empathetic and much more. I felt. I mean, there's certainly scenarios where you feel bad for folks, right?
Yeah.
And then there's scenarios where folks kind of put themselves in that corner. I remember I went and knocked on a door one time. It was over by the country club, actually. And I was like, and in the driveway is like an Infinity, it would have been a crossover SUV. This was back in the mid-2000s or whatever. Yeah. And this dude comes out and he's like, I don't know, man. He's probably in his 20s or 30s. Like, I guess probably 20s. I figure, like, okay, this is his house. I'm like, hey, your house is getting foreclosed and this and that. And he's like, okay, well, we'll figure it out. We'll talk about it. I'm like, okay. So I get down the road about 2 minutes, not even 2 minutes, probably a minute and a half. And I get this phone call and it's his mom. And she's like, why did you tell my son the house was getting foreclosed? We weren't going to tell him. You were just a vulture. Eat shit and die.
Oh, man.
And dude, I felt so bad. Because there was an idiot mistake of just assuming the guy was a homeowner, but with his car and being in the house, like I just assumed it was his, I guess.
Yeah.
It must be nice to have, anyway.
Yeah, living with your mom at like 30 years old is kind of, I mean, don't feel too bad.
I certainly did at the time. But I think, now I would probably be more successful at it because I'm just more self-confident, more experienced. If something doesn't pan out, I think being up front with everybody, one of the sayings I had learned as I got further down the road in commercial real estate for the last firm that I worked with was like, hey, you can lose every penny of someone's money as long as you keep them informed and tell them what's going on. But if you go radio silent, you're going to get sued. And it's doing it with integrity, right? Like not doing it, but it's like, man, Alex, we did this investment and, the county came in and said we had to do all of these other things to bring it up to code and shit, man, I'm sorry, but I don't have your money. I'll make it right however I can. Versus like, you gave me $1,000 and I'm like, oh shit, Alex, hang up. Oh shit, Alex, I hope I don't see him at the grocery store. That sort of thing. And so not that it makes it good. I think you need to do things with integrity and right intention, but everyone, again, it goes back to everyone makes mistakes, and then trying to make whatever happen right as best you can.
Yeah, I got you.
So
okay.
The $10 a year you get in the mail, hopefully, eventually, they would equal that $1,000. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah,
I got you, bro.
But yeah.
All right, so let's move into adversity and perspective. Okay, so a month after getting married, you found out that you had a benign brain tumor. That's how you pronounce it, right? Benign?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you didn't even have to go to college for that shit.
Right. I dropped out twice. So that's got to be a brain trip, man, like a pun intended brain trip. But what was going on through your mind during that time, during that season?
Oh, geez, man. I felt like such a schmuck. I mean, like, I remember going... I'd started losing my hearing in college, in my right ear. So it's just the right side. And I was in college, and at that time I went to, one of those hearing aid stores or whatever, and they did the testing, like, oh yeah, here. And they gave me a hearing aid to try out, and it worked. Yeah. But I was in college. I wasn't going to, not that I necessarily had the $1,200 or $1,500, whatever it was, I wasn't going to spend that much only to go out partying and then lose the damn hearing aid or break it, right? Yeah. And so I'd known for a long time that I had hearing loss. I started with, I think it was when I was 22, I noticed. And so I got married. My wife's like, oh, you should go get a hearing aid. I'm like, all right, fine, I'll go get a hearing aid. And so I go to an otolaryngologist, an ear, nose, and throat doctor. And, they're like, it's kind of weird that it's just on one side, no gunshots, no explosions. I was like, well, I was in a car stereo. That's what I figured. Honestly, I figured it was from, because I used to beat down the block, man. We used to, oh, geez. Yeah. Anyway, that's a whole nother another avenue. But so I get an MRI, and they're like, okay, we'll come back in 30 days after you get results. And I'm young, I'm naive, I'm healthy. And the gal doing the MRI is like, hey, you have an appointment with your doctor, right? A follow-up appointment? I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Mm-hmm. And she asked me like 3 or 4 times if I had an appointment with the doctor. And in retrospect, it was because she saw like a big-ass tumor. So the 30 days appointment is scheduled, but the morning after I get the MRI, they call and they're like, hey, you need to come in and talk to us.
Yeah.
And I remember I'd never had surgery. I'd been in the hospital when I was like 5, I think, 5 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
4, anyway, whatever. And he's like, well, you've got a tumor. I'm like, well, is it possible? Like maybe it was my ring. I just got married. Maybe it reflected on the MRI thing. Or I was like, he was like, no, you have a tumor. And I was just like, I got choked up, man. Because I was like, fuck, I just got married. I felt like a schmuck. I felt like I tricked my wife into marrying somebody that was, I just felt all sorts of jacked up.
Yeah,
and
lots of stuff going through your mind, yeah. After news like that.
And he's like, don't cry. It's not a big deal. Don't cry. I'm like, what? He called me the next day and apologized. He's like, hey, I'm so sorry. He's like, we see this so commonly. To us, it's not a big deal. But to the patient, it was a big deal, you know. And in that same time frame, it all happened within like a month. My grandma passed away, and then I had my truck, that S10 I had mentioned. I had my truck stolen all within, I think it was within like a week and a half period. So it was like the tumor, my grandma dies, and like truck gets stolen. So like, okay, well, things happen in threes. I got those knocked out of the way.
Yeah.
And I remember just like, what are you trying to do, God? Like what?
Yeah.
How much can a person take? And a person could take a lot, and had other things occur down the road years later that were much less scary, I guess, if you will, and much less of a big deal, and maybe impacted me more. I think so. What they said was it had grown to the size of a golf ball, and it was compressing my brainstem. So it grows off the auditory nerve, which is why you lose your hearing. And they had to remove it, but they only could take out 2/3 because they didn't want to make me a quadriplegic or something by trying to remove the part that was against the brainstem.
Interesting.
And so, and I, in retrospect, I'd have numbness in my lips and stuff, or like my balance was horrible. My wife and I were out on a date one night. We were having sushi downtown, and I'm sitting in my chair, and just all of a sudden, like, I just fell out of my chair.
Oh shit!
It was like, this dude's drunk or what? But no drinks. Just So
it was that bad.
Yeah, it was that bad. And I was young and dumb, man. I didn't realize. And so they did the surgery. It was a 12-hour surgery. They have a neurosurgeon and then an otolaryngologist. They work on it together.
Yeah.
So they trade off. And I think I was in the hospital for like 4 or 5 days, which, it was amazing. I did learn something about insurance that was incredibly frustrating. I had, what was it? Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance, and the neurosurgeon, he's not even in the state anymore. He left for Arizona because of all the medical issues we've had, and that's a whole nother conversation about the challenges in healthcare that we have here.
Yeah.
But he was like, I don't feel safe doing this surgery at Lovelace, which was the hospital. He's like, I'll do it at Press. They have experience with it. I'll only do it at Press. I'm like, okay. And so go through that process. They got to do pre-authorizations, and Blue Cross Blue Shield was like, well, if you're going to do it at Press, you can, but it's going to be considered out of network. And so the cost difference for a surgery, a craniotomy is the technical term for brain surgery. I mean, it was, and I'm sure there's a max out of pocket, but at the end of the day, I didn't understand all that. It was going to be like $25,000, $30,000, $40,000 difference. I didn't have that kind of money, man.
Right.
And so I'm like, fuck, all right. So I called some friends, and this just goes back to meeting people and networking. One of the friends happened to do events and promotions for Presbyterian Hospital. And so I talked to him, and I'd known him. It wasn't, like we had not talked about things before. He's like, I would call this person over at Presbyterian and talk to them and see what they can tell you. And it was someone pretty high up. And she said, well, if you lived in Santa Fe, your surgery would be considered in-network. I'm like, okay, so wait a minute. I live in Albuquerque, but if I have it at the hospital in Albuquerque, it's considered out of network. But if I live in Santa Fe and have it in the hospital in Albuquerque, it's considered in network. She's like, yeah. I'm like, interesting.
Yeah.
And so the point where I was going with that, I wouldn't have known that if I didn't know somebody who knew somebody.
Yeah.
And I lucked out. And so it's just maddening. And so I'm like, well, do people ever move to Santa Fe and then move back to Albuquerque as far as the insurance knows? She's like, well, I can't tell you what to do, but that's been known to happen.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I called my insurance company. I said, hey, this is maybe insurance fraud. I'm here recording this shit. Allegedly.
It's allegedly happening.
Allegedly. I don't know when the statutes of limitations runs out, but I moved to Santa Fe. We'll just go with this. I moved to Santa Fe for a job, and called the insurance company and said, hey, I got a job up here. I was living with a friend that lived in Santa Fe, so I was able to use their address, and had the surgery. They covered it in network. I did have to get radiation, so they use this, it's called gamma knife radiation. So what they could not take out from the tumor, they used radiation in a very precise manner around the perimeter of the remaining tumor.
Yeah.
And so the idea is that the tumor implodes on itself, or at least doesn't grow, which knock on wood, it has not in all this time. This was quite some time ago.
Yeah.
And so I had that done, and probably after 6 months, I didn't have that job work out and moved back to Albuquerque. And and everything was fine until like 5 years later. I go to pick up a prescription at Walgreens one time, and they're like, oh yeah, you live on such and such road. I'm like, did someone try and steal my identity? What the freak? And like, oh yeah, in Santa Fe. I'm like, oh yeah, Santa Fe. So apparently it hadn't gotten updated in their system. But anyway, it all worked out, man. It is frustrating sometimes. I have to sit strategically in certain social situations, or when I'm listening to people. My wife walks on my left side because that's my good ear, and so now I think when she's out with her friends or someone else and I'm not there, she still tends to walk on the left side of people because that's just habitual.
Right.
But yeah, and so at that time I felt like a schmuck. I also got like in super good shape before the surgery, and I was in my late 20s, so I was still in pretty good health. I mean, not that I'm in bad health now, but I was like just looking at like a fight that I was going to have. I wanted to be in the best shape I could to be as prepared as I could be for a surgery.
Okay, gotcha, man. That's quite the story, bro. And God bless, man.
Thank you. Oh, it's all good. We're all good.
Let's see. So let's dive a little deeper into the hearing process, right? So losing hearing in your right ear, right? I already know you just told us that your wife has a tendency of staying on your left side of the ear. But for you, how did that change the way you communicate, you listen, lead, especially when it comes to business? Yeah,
so as I mentioned, in certain social situations, I sit strategically. So I'm kind of angled a lot of times with and it depends on if it's a small room or what have you, but where that person is on my left side, so I can hear them better. Also, I didn't realize how important looking at people's mouths was, and being able to see them to understand what they're saying until COVID happened and everyone, people wearing a mask. And I like, A, I'm half deaf anyway. B, now I can't see what you're saying. So it was like, I'm sorry, I don't know what. So it was a little, no, seriously. I mean,
no, I know. I'm just thinking that COVID didn't do good for anyone or anything.
Pharmaceutical companies, but
Yeah.
Yeah. So it certainly, I have to pay more attention and be more focused on what someone's saying. And honestly, sometimes you and I are talking and we're having two different conversations at the same time. And we don't know it until one of us is like, what the heck? What are you talking about? And it's like, yeah, I thought you said you wanted to go fly to the moon. You're like, no, I said I'm going to go clean my room. Like, it's like,
shit.
So I think that in business and how that applies, and really contrary to all the words that have come out of my mouth, listen much more than you speak, and hear the person or the party or the people, and that's how you learn. You'll get much further, and people, as I guess I'm proving here, like to talk about themselves, and so you'll learn a lot more and get a lot further if you listen.
That's for sure. I know that's one of like the greatest leadership qualities to have, is listen more than you speak. Especially when you're in a room full of like business partners and stuff. Like, you always want to be the quiet one. You want to be soaking in what everybody's talking about, because you're always going to learn something anyway, right? So that's a quality that I like to have, is just shut up and listen. Okay, so you kind of answered this next one, so I'm going to jump on to the next question. So during the Great Recession, you had 8 months of no income with a baby on the way, actually. So what did that pressure teach you about risk and responsibility?
Yeah, that was a time where I freaked the freak out, man.
Yeah.
I thought I was smart by having 8 months of expenses. They say if you're going to have an emergency fund, have 6 months. And I'm like, surely, no matter what happens in the world, I can make money in that time frame. But I had not, and the prospects were not looking any better for the upcoming 6 months or 12 months.
Yeah.
I would borrow hard money, so I would go to private investors and show them what I was working on, and then they would typically loan me the money based on that to buy the property, do the rehab, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then I would turn around and then sell said property. And when the market tanked, one, nobody was lending. Two, if you did find someone to loan you the money and get a house and rehab it, the sales were just in the tank in general. People were not buying during that time.
Yeah.
In general, your average person or home purchaser was not buying. Down the road, certainly you had all sorts of investment firms and things get into buying large swaths of housing. But at that point, so anyway, I started having panic attacks, man. I like wake up at night and I thought I was going bonkers. I was like, no, it probably didn't help that I was drinking a pot of coffee when I'd wake up in the morning and a pot of coffee before I'd go to bed. Like legit, like, yeah. I don't know. I can't do that now. But so what it did teach me, to go back to what you had asked, the importance of cash flow and the importance of having investments or cash flow that's not tied to your job or your career, some alternative, and really live below your means. And I've not done a great job of that all the time. But if you live below your means and have that cushion, you'll get a lot further. But, like I said, man, 8 months and I had a cushion and it didn't work out. So, and since that time, I'd partnered with a couple of guys that I used to work for and bought like a industrial building. So we've got just under 51,000 feet between two buildings. We got like 14 tenants. And so that provides some cash flow each month that even if I don't have a great month in my brokerage business, I've still got some cash coming in from that. And you know, that's one of the things to work towards is consistency. So you're not like peaks and valleys, which is super common in sales, or can be. It's been super common for me anyway. Is to do daily activities that are going to result in more opportunities, so you have more consistent cash flow. But sometimes deals tank at the end, they crater, and so you know, if you were counting on this to cover a certain expense, you know, without that outside cash flow coming in, you're SOL, man.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So having passive income pretty much is gonna.
Yeah, and that's what, you know, that Rich Dad Poor Dad book talked about, is passive income. In reality, I would say I do call it passive income for lack of a better term, but realistically, it's you know, not hourly income, because it's not like truly passive. You know, that's you could be a general partner in an investment, which manages it, or you could be a limited partner, which you invest but you don't manage it. So I guess in theory, a limited partner might have passive income because they don't do something, but there's still some focus and attention that goes into these things.
Yeah.
So I mean, passive income, for lack of a better term, it's not truly passive. You know, I guess maybe you get to a certain point where you've got property managers and people in place, so you don't have to look at anything or touch anything other than financial reports. Passive at that point, I suppose. But,
yeah.
Especially when you're getting started, it's not passive. But it's also not an hourly wage income either.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Let's move on to your professional evolution. All right. So you made the practical decision to join Fidelity for stability. So how did working in that environment refine your approach to commercial real estate?
Yeah. So at the time that I went to Fidelity Investments, so 2009 happens. My wife's about to have our son. You know, and I think that's where a lot of that stress came from, was like having to provide and not having income. So I was not doing commercial real estate at that point in time. So I was still doing residential foreclosures and flipping, rehabbing, things like that.
Yeah.
And so what it really did was it gave me health insurance, which was nice, because at that point, you know, the Obamacare thing had not gone into place, talking about pre-existing conditions. And so if I didn't have a job, I was not insurable because I'd had a brain tumor.
Yeah.
Now, I think you could have easily, and I say easily like I know what I'm talking about, but I think you could have gotten rid of pre-existing conditions without doing everything else that was done in Obamacare. But regardless, it was nice to have health insurance. And,
for sure,
you know, to work, and I would work from 5:30 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon. I'd get up about 3:45. I like to get up, have some coffee, and have some time, instead of like my wife would just get up and rush in 5 or 10 minutes and get out the door. I don't do that. I like to have some time to contemplate and read or think and just be still. And so it actually was nice to have a paycheck. And it was a really humbling experience, because when I was working for myself, and even when I was working for someone but doing the rehabs, I was like, oh yeah, man, people that have an hourly wage, they're chumps, they're suckers. Like, man, I tell you, having health insurance was nice. Clocking in, clocking out, and not having to think about that stuff when I go home was nice. Like, you know, because when you're self-employed, you're working all the time. Your mind is there all the time, even if you're physically not.
Yeah.
And so that was really nice. But it did also teach me a level, I think, of corporate bureaucracy and politics that I was not as familiar with. Inevitably, you'd have like they'd hire for a position or have like 3 hires. It's like one person, you're like, absolutely, that person is the right person for that position, and then they'd hire like another person. You're like, I guess I could see it. I can't say that that's not the right person. I think there might have been some better people. And then they'd hire a third person. You're like, what the fuck were they thinking? Like, and it was very HR centered and corporate political based. I do have to say though that I transitioned. So I started there. It was health and welfare benefits. So I was doing insurance for General Motors, which was pretty cool actually. And they were going through all sorts of changes with that bankruptcy and things, and but I transitioned into the facilitation team. So I became a trainer, and so I got to where I was teaching new hires how to do the job. And I love teaching. I love talking to people. I like instructing. I like interacting with people. I add, my idiosyncrasies and my humor to it to try and keep it entertaining. I had a blast. And so that really sparked in me the acknowledgement that that's something I enjoy and I want to continue to do.
All right.
And so that came out of Fidelity. And, getting up at 5:30 was really nice for Black Fridays for a number of years because I'd be up super early and everyone else would still be in bed, but I could go get the shopping knocked out. So,
yeah. Okay.
I was just used to getting up. So.
All right. Cool. Hey, Warriors. Before we get back into today's episode, I want to take a moment to share something really meaningful. Life can get heavy sometimes, whether you're a teenager figuring out your place in the world, a family trying to stay connected through challenges, or a service member transitioning back to the civilian life. It's not always easy to navigate those moments alone, and that's where the Rock Family Therapy comes in. They're a veteran-owned practice dedicated to helping people just like you, people facing real struggles, real emotions, and real turning points. Their team offers compassionate, personalized therapy for adolescents, families, military personnel, and anyone working through trauma. What I love most about their approach is they truly listen, they take action, and they help you transform. No judgment, no one-size-fits-all solutions, just a safe, supportive space where you can heal, grow, and regain control of your life. If you've been carrying something heavy, this would be your sign to take that first step. You don't have to go through it alone. Check out the Rock Family Therapy and start building a brighter future one step at a time. Mention that you heard the sponsorship on my podcast, and you'll get your first session free. No obligations. All right, let's get back to the episode. What's up, Warriors? Before we jump further in today's episode, I've got a story you need to hear. It starts back in 2010 with a guy named A.G. Gregoroff hiking through the San Diego backcountry. In the middle of nowhere, his flip-flop blows out, the strap snaps, he's stuck, so he does what most people wouldn't. He rigs it back together with paracord just to make it out. It works, but barely. His feet are torn up, bleeding, and that's when the question hits him. Why isn't there a flip-flop actually built for real life? So here's where things get interesting. Not long after, he's in Japan working as a military contractor, and he goes deep into the jungles of Okinawa looking for a master leather craftsman. No joke, this turns into a decade-long obsession with building the toughest, most durable, best-looking flip-flops you can imagine. Now we're talking full-grain American leather, handcrafted, built to handle mountains, deserts, everyday wear, whatever you throw at them. At first, it was just for him. Then his jiu-jitsu team wanted some. Then his other military guys wanted some. Then athletes. And suddenly, this thing just blows up and gets a name. Toehold. And today, it's grown into a brand out of Las Vegas that's basically flipping the entire footwear industry on its head. While everyone else is making cheap disposable stuff, these guys are building something that actually gets you where you need to go. And it gets better with time. So if you're tired of replacing your flip-flops every month and you want something that's built with intention, built to last, and honestly just looks incredible, go to shoptoehold.com and get your gear today. You can also get yourself a wallet, a key fob, caps, rash guards, and much more. All right, guys, let's jump back into the episode. Let's go a little deeper into what drew you specifically into industrial and office real estate.
Yeah, so kind of the transition into commercial real estate first, and then into industrial and office real estate after Fidelity. And while I was there, I started working back in real estate again, and it got to a point to where it was costing me more money to stay there than to get out there and do more deals. And so, I knew probably 6 months before I had left Fidelity that I was probably going to leave. In fact, I was up for a promotion about a month and a half before I had kind of had a timeline in my mind of when I was going to leave, and I told my manager, like, hey, just keep this on the DL, but I'm not going to be sticking around, so you're probably better off investing that money in somebody else and that training, because I'm not going to be here.
Yeah.
I just felt like that was the right thing to do. And so I was back doing rehabs and flipping, and going back to Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's like you find people, and I suppose Napoleon Hill, any of these folks that are discussing self-improvement, you find people that are doing what you want to do or have achieved what you want to achieve, and you go try and work with them or go see what they're doing. You go talk to them. And I was in a business group, Albuquerque Tip Club, still a member of that today. We have breakfast every Wednesday, and at the time, I was the foreclosure person. There was a residential real estate broker, and I had a license just to sell my own stuff. But and then there was a commercial broker, Brad Allen, who at the time was with Roger Cox and Associates, and then he and his partner Lance Sigmund split off on their own. It was probably 2011, 2012, somewhere in there. And so I said, man, this guy's killing it. I want to do what he's doing. And so I went to work with him.
Yeah.
And so that's how I got into commercial real estate. And the first 2 or 3 years, I probably did 3 to 5 commercial transactions, and then still did mainly my foreclosure and rehab stuff. And so I got to work on apartment buildings, multifamily, and, there were 3, 4, 5 unit buildings. I think the biggest apartment building I sold was like 32 units. In the war zone on Chama. Holy smokes, dude. That was a freaking learning lesson. Hey, we're going to show the building. Can you clean up all the orange needle caps before we get there? Oh, there's a chalk outline.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy.
You can't clean it because it's, okay, crime scene? Got it.
Shit.
So I didn't have it systematized, and so I didn't really enjoy multifamily because you'd set up showings and with the tenants, and at that point, the owners thought they had gold and the buyers thought they had aluminum, and when those same owners with the gold were buying something, they were buying aluminum prices, versus gold. There was just a big discrepancy, and there's brokers that have systems in place and do it, and they kill it.
Yeah.
It's been a little slow the last few years with interest rates going up, but so I did that. Retail, those are some catty bitches, man. Those retail brokers, there's some great retail brokers here in Albuquerque and other places, but you're doing prospecting, right? You've got maybe a parcel of land, or you've got a building, you're like, hey, this would be great for AutoZone, for instance. And so what do? Like, well, shoot, I'm going to look up their corporate real estate information and give them a call, see if I can get a hold of somebody and present this property to them.
Yeah.
And so the next thing you know, you do that, and then you get some egomaniac broker calling like, how dare you call my client? Why are you calling them? I've represented them for 20 years. I'm like, well, your name's not on the website. They didn't say like, hey, call. So, and then it's just very close to the vest and caddy, very cloak and dagger, and I just didn't appreciate that. And if I remember correctly, the AutoZone brokers, Tim With and John Ransom, awesome guys, by the way. So that was not that scenario, but just kind of giving an example.
Yeah.
They're here local, great guys. And so what I found, though, I think, is that you do a little bit of every product type, so office, industrial, warehouse, and I just gravitated more towards warehouse and industrial because they were blue collar folks, salt of the earth people. Kind of, I think it really they weren't pretentious, and it reminded me a lot of like growing up in Iowa, and just hardworking folks that just busting their hump. And so I for sure enjoyed that and continue to enjoy that more than any retail or multifamily. I moved over to Sun Vista Commercial Real Estate in August of last year, and so at this point, I can refer that out to different people. And there's people that I know are going to do a good job, and I can kind of sit there and look over their shoulder and make sure they're doing a good job. Because I do, at the end of the day, want to make sure whoever I'm working with, that they're taken care of.
Yeah.
That is important to me. And so the more I did with industrial real estate, the more I enjoyed it. And timing-wise, kind of looked out that it's been kind of a hot commodity the last, 7 years or so. We're in 2026. So, yeah, I would say probably the last, 6 or 7 years. Everyone who was not previously on the industrial bandwagon has gotten on the industrial bandwagon as far as investors go in real estate.
All right. Yeah, I would say that's a pretty hot thing to be in, man. It's good turnarounds, but
yeah,
that's pretty cool, man. Let's see. Okay, this is cool. So you said, quote unquote.
Oh, jeez. Allegedly.
If a deal doesn't make sense, I'll say so. So in a commission-based business, how do you stay committed to that principle?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I think it's kind of going full circle back to what my dad taught me, doing things with honesty and integrity.
Yeah.
A belief that I've had and tried to operate from is that the truth always comes out in the end.
Yeah, of course.
So you might take a shortcut, and that's fine for a while. At some point, whether it's 6 months, a year, 3 years, 5 years down the road, that's going to come to light, and you might as well just do the right thing up front. So to answer your question, making sure you're squared away with your finances, I think going back to doing things consistently on a daily basis to fill your pipeline. And so for me, that's prospect calling. That's going out and meeting business owners, maybe going out and knocking on doors to show them, hey, here's a property for sale in your neighborhood or your area, or you're in this area, I just sold a property there a few months back. If you want to talk about the details, be happy to do that. And so those things aren't sexy. They're not even fun sometimes. I mean, dialing a number and having people hang up on you, or dialing the wrong number, having somebody tell you to fuck off. It's all of that has been experienced. I should have asked if we can cuss, but
no, that's fine. If you haven't got it by now,
it's like a little late in the game, buddy. But those things are the fundamentals of blocking and tackling. And then at the end of the day, this is a relationship business. Anything in sales, I think, is a relationship business. I suppose there are certain items that are like you sell one and they're never going to buy another one, so you don't care if and that's also a personal integrity thing too. But the best listing sales buyers that I've had haven't come from somebody that I've reached out to and like, oh yeah, I need to buy something today. It's usually been 18 months, 24 months, 36 months down the road, and consistent communication with them and keeping in touch with them.
Okay.
And so if you don't put their interest first, and there's definitely folks out there that do that, your reputation is going to precede you. And people can pick up on that, right? Like, people know if you're just in it for the money, if you're in it for something more holistic. And a lot of times people might just be thinking about that one transaction, but realistically, they probably need to talk to their tax person. They need to talk to an attorney. They need to talk to their family, like their estate planning. There's so many things that come into play other than just, hey, I need to sell or buy a building and here's a price. I mean, you want to have a holistic picture of what's going on. And sometimes, and I just had this conversation 2 weeks ago, I had an offer to purchase a building for a client I have, and we have it for lease. And we looked at his financial situation, and he essentially is going to have the building free and clear in 2 years. And so the return he's going to get from just continuing to own that and lease it is he going to get a better return somewhere else? Probably not. I mean, if he had a better opportunity, maybe. In that instance, for me personally, the highest dollar item is selling that building. But the best thing for him and for our relationship long term is to say, hey, actually, this is the return you get if you just hang on to it and lease it. And so by, and he had some concept of that, right? Like he wasn't completely oblivious to it, but by pointing that out and showing him actual numbers on what those scenarios were, it ended up, it's going to be what's best for him and his family.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, and if not, I make a sale, but what does that mean for our relationship? What does that mean, 2 or 3 years down the road?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, especially in that field of business, I can see that.
Absolutely.
All right. So you earned your CCIM designation and you're pursuing your SIOR. So what separates top tier brokers from the rest?
Yeah, so just real quickly, so CCIM stands for Certified Commercial Investment Member. SIOR is Society of Industrial and Office Realtors. And for both of those, you have to have a level of competency. CCIM specifically, it's a lower dollar volume, but you do have 4 courses that you take. They're week-long courses, and then you have a test after each one. And then at the end of it, you take a cumulative test. And so I would heavily equate it to like a master's of commercial real estate finance in getting that. But you do have to have some experience, and you have to document the transactions you've done and the dollar amounts, et cetera. So it's going to show a level of competency and then also of financial literacy. So when you're talking to folks that are investing their money, you can talk at a higher level, if you like, talk about internal rates of return and cash on cash and appreciation, depreciation, recapture, and which, I'm saying a bunch of shit that's probably meaningless to a lot of people. But the point being, and by the same token, you don't want to talk over somebody's head, right? Like if I'm talking to somebody that has no clue what that means because they don't do that every day, I don't want to sound like the smartest guy in the room.
Right. Yeah. You want them to be able to relate.
Yeah. It's like when I go into ChatGPT, I'm like, tell me about this. It's like, gives me this technical thing. I'm like, okay, tell me like I'm a 7th grader. Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. And so there's that. So to have that designation, you've put in some work and have some familiarity with sales of commercial real estate. The SIOR designation, I would say, is a tougher one to earn. So I'm a member associate still. That's, just from an economic standpoint, top 5% of industrial and or office brokers in their market. Mm-hmm. And it's also consistency. So you have to hit that for, I guess, 3 or 4 out of 5 years. So it can't just be like, oh, I had a good year last year and then, screw off for a couple of years. So it goes down to, or comes down to, I should say, experience, competency, having done deals, and so just the networking aspects. The great thing about that is being able to talk with brokers from multiple markets across the country who are not your direct competitors, and some of them are. Like I'm friends with a number of the guys here in our market, and we're still good friends and share ideas. It allows you to be privy to best practices, what's working in other markets, what's not working, how to run a business, how to deal with certain scenarios. And so it's been super beneficial in that regard. I had mentioned this on another podcast that you operate from. Oh, I probably should have known what the hell I said before I was about to say it, shouldn't I? At the end of the day, like cooperation happens at the top, competition happens at the bottom.
Okay.
And so you have all these folks that are in the same industry, but you're operating from, you could call it an abundance mindset, and you're sharing, again, best practices, ideas, etc. And you also know, and this is where it goes back to relationships, that if I need something in Phoenix, or I need something in LA, or I need something in Nashville, Tennessee, I can call someone in that market that I know for a fact knows what they're doing and can take care of the person that I want to have taken care of.
Okay.
And so it's a level of confidence also. And so it's just, and you get around folks that are doing things at a higher level, you raise your standards.
Yeah.
And so I found it super beneficial.
Yeah, it's good to have people that are like-minded, driven.
Yeah.
All right, and this is the last one for this category. We got one more category after this, and then we're gonna hit rapid fire.
3 hours later.
All right, cool. So this is a fun one. I'm interested to see what your answer is on this one as well. So what's one misconception people have about commercial real estate?
One misconception that people have about commercial real estate, I would say that everybody in commercial real estate is killing it, and we're bigger than life. And what I mean by that is there are plenty of residential brokers that earn as much or more as commercial brokers.
Okay.
The life cycle of selling a house is much quicker. Everybody needs a house. Not everybody needs a place for a business.
Yeah.
And I've had deals, on average, I'd say probably 45 to 60 days is on the shorter end of things for selling a commercial building or even doing a lease. But I've had deals that have taken years. I've had deals that I've worked on for months, and then they fall apart. Whereas with residential, there's much more volume. There's a quicker turnaround. Typically 30 days is pretty common.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a misconception. I think a truth is, I remember when I was only doing residential, I'd drive around and I see these signs that were huge. Like they had these, 4x4 signs versus, a little yard sign that a residential realtor sticks in the yard. I was like, man, these guys have big fucking egos. And it's true, we have big egos. That's why we wear the sweater vests. And people are like, why do you do that? Because we're better than you. Like, it's not true, but there's definitely some stereotypes there. I've got my North Face vest with, for sure. I had to do that, shit, or I wouldn't be a full-fledged commercial broker.
All right, cool. Yeah. All right, let's jump into our last category before rapid fire.
Okay.
So this is 2 questions on your personal life and passion projects. So I had to bring this up, bro, because we've talked about it at jiu-jitsu a couple times.
I do it one time in college, and suddenly I'm gay. I don't, dude. It was one time.
$20 is $20.
I was hungry.
All right, so you've done stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
And you called yourself a D-list actor, quote unquote.
Yeah.
So what does performing teach you that applies to brokerage?
Oh, geez, man. There's certainly the acting part, and I think a big part of acting is listening. Going back to listening, and so I think that has come into play. Also, I try not to work with anybody that I don't enjoy their company or they don't enjoy my company, and that's not always possible, but as much as I can, I do. And the further along you get, the more you can stick to that, because you're not needing to put food on the table if you don't get this deal done.
Yeah.
And so I think being able to fall into a situation that you truly believe in that moment is probably helpful in sales, whether it's commercial real estate or anything else. you say things. So when I would learn, like, let's say I had a script and I had a scene I had to do and learn, I would take that and I would just write that thing out, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 times. And maybe it's a 3-page scene. So, and I would do it so where I could write it without looking at the script to where I knew it. And I'd have the other person's lines that I could read, but then mine would be covered up. So I'd like, and so you do something repeatedly that it's so ingrained that you don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
So then it's there if you need it, but you're not sitting there like, okay, what am I supposed to say next? Okay. And so then what that allows you to do is listen to the other person you're in the scene with or whatever the situation is and be 100% present there.
Yeah.
And when you're doing that, then you're able to react to that. I mean, this is a little different than real estate, but you react to that person's emotion. Something you say or a way you look at me might spark something in me. And so being open to that, this really does sound gay now, but which is okay. If you're into that stuff, hey, more power to you. You know, geez.
Yeah, I did say stand-up comedy, so...
Yeah, so, well, I mean, in the stand-up comedy, that is, for me, I much more enjoyed acting, and I think I had more of a natural penchant for that. I like improv comedy, like that's...
Yeah.
I'm still, that's still easy, but stand-up comedy's tough, man. You know, you do have to have a lot of confidence in yourself and be okay with crickets. I remember the first time that I ever had like silence, which is like what I think every comedian dreads. At least you have nightmares about it, and having something bomb. And I remember it was at One Up. It was downtown. I think it's like 2nd and Central, and half the people are listening. Half the people on the other side are playing pool and could give a shit less what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And so it's a tough venue, and getting started with open mics and stuff is tough too. But there was silence, and I was still alive after the silence. And so, but writing things, again, I think writing things in a way that when you're on stage, it sounds like it's the first time you've ever said it. You know, and so interestingly enough, going back to just having lived many lives, I was doing a stand-up comedy show and went to the venue the week before to kind of check it out.
Okay.
You know, I think that's a good thing to do. So you kind of get a feel for the place.
Do some recon.
Exactly. And so there was a guy I met there, and I had met him on some other comedy shows, but it wasn't like we were cool or anything. This guy, T. Graham, this black dude from Compton, California.
Okay.
Shout out T. Graham. So he was there. He's a few years older than I am, but we're very parallel in where we're at in our life's journeys. And so he was going to do the comedy show the next week as well. So we both were there to recon. We're like, hey man, we should get together and write some comedy.
Yeah.
And so we kind of became, I guess, writing partners, if you will. We'd get together and write stuff. And so, you know, the white guy from the cornfields of Iowa and the black dude from Compton. Anyway, he's like a student of the game with comedy. Like, he's watched it. He could be like, oh, this person said that, or this guy did this. And for me, maybe it's just my mind, but sets would go in one side and out the other of different comedians. You know, there's comedians I like, and maybe I'd watch their stuff multiple times and be able to ingest it. But I think stand-up comedy is harder because you're there and you don't have anybody else you're working off of. Now, you get to a point maybe where you do crowd work, and that can be good and be a lot of fun. But, you know, there's so many times that I left things on the stage, and then you go home and you're like, oh, shit, I should have said this. Stephen Michael Casada he had this show for a while called the After Party. We filmed it at the warehouse, and I did like a crowd warm-up. Okay. For that. And so beforehand, and you get the crowd going, you talk to them, kind of. I mean, it really is getting it warmed up. So when the comedian comes on, it's not a cold audience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I remember I was certainly doing it because I wanted to be the comedian for one of the episodes, and it didn't happen. And then one day, one of the guys was booked and couldn't show up. And so like an hour and a half before the show's going on, he's like, hey, you're going to do the spot tonight. And I'm like, oh shit. Like, I got to go home. I got to get a suit. I got to was not planning on that at all.
Yeah.
And I was doing a bit about, and this happened. I was driving back to New Mexico from Iowa, and I got pulled over in Kansas, and for going 72 and a 70, and I'm like, that was complete bullshit because I was doing like 85. Yeah. So I mean, he did not have his radar on because I know. And then I slowed down a little bit once I saw him, or once I passed him. But so I'm doing this bit about like having a New Mexico driver's license, and this guy in the audience, while we're filming the fucking show, I'm like, the cop's like, well, we don't get too many Mexicans around here. And this guy in the audience is like, you're white. And I just kept on going like I didn't hear him because we were recording the show. And in retrospect, I should have called it out and be like, dude, where the fuck were you when I needed someone to help me in that situation? Like, you could go work for the Kansas State Patrol, because at that point, the recession was happening, people needed jobs. He was probably unemployed. I don't know, but but I didn't think of that until afterwards. In the moment, I just kept going with my set, and so there's a lot of that, and the comedy thing. I got to a point where if I was going to get better, I would have probably had to go try and tour and do that. And you're not making any money, man. Yeah, you're hoping you can pay for your gas. And also, there was not a designated comedy club or spots that were doing comedy. Laughs had closed by that point. And so being at bars 2 or 3 nights a week for open mics was just not conducive to family life. Yeah. And so I just said, you know what, I'll hang this up. Although my boy T. Graham recently has gotten back into doing stand-up after a hiatus. Okay. And kind of inspired me. So I don't know. I might mess around and do something, but
we got plenty of clubs now, man.
But it truly is a lot of work. Yeah. And it's a lot of fun. And I think, and the same thing with acting. I think at a point, people were more excited about me acting. Like, oh, I saw you on this commercial, or I saw you in this, or I saw you on that. Or hey, do you have any roles coming up? Or and the stand-up comedy, they were more excited about it than I was doing it myself. And so it was like, okay, probably time to hang that up. And the Hollywood industry, that's a whole nother topic and ball of wax. But I got to the point where I was not feeling it. I didn't agree with a lot of things. And I wasn't willing to stake my life on it. I mean, at that point I had kids and a wife and a family, and I'm like, let that audition opportunity go to somebody that would die for it.
The hungry ones out there for the,
because that's not me
wanting to do that specifically.
Exactly.
Okay, it makes sense. I get you. Which is selfless of you to hand that opportunity off to someone else. So
sure, we'll go with that.
All right, bro, my last question for you. You train jiu-jitsu, which is fucking awesome.
Carlson Gracie, let's go.
I'm biased on that one. How does grappling translate to negotiating deals or navigating business challenges?
Man, it goes so far beyond that. I think the lessons that you can glean from grappling, whether it's jiu-jitsu, whether it's wrestling, the life lessons of being uncomfortable, persevering, are invaluable. I would consider jiu-jitsu to be physical chess, in the sense of you have an idea of what you want to do, but you also have to take into account what that other person's doing, and it's on almost a second scale sometimes.
Yeah.
A lot of times, probably. I think for me, it's been one of the most meditative things that I've ever done, because you have no choice but to be 100% present when the person across from you is trying to bend your joints in ways they were not meant to bend, or choke you unconscious.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, the lessons could be innumerable, but you can apply certainly perseverance, hard work, being uncomfortable, but knowing that, hey, at some point things are going to change. I think there's a huge translation over to business and just life in general. It's been one of the best things that I've ever could do for my mental health and my physical health.
For sure.
I think my joints have aged probably an extra 10 years.
Yeah.
But a body of a what, I don't know, 60-year-old? No, not really.
Yeah.
But my wife and I, we've been joking about OnlyFans and foot fetishes, because people make it like killer money, like
yeah.
10, 15,000 a month, taking pictures of their feet, doing
crazy.
weird stuff. So I'm like, we could do the feet of jiu-jitsu and take I will send you a picture of my dislocated toe getting popped back in for $100.
Holy shit.
And if you want me to say your name while it's happening, that's an extra 50. Things like that. And like, I mean, you got people's feet that are like, I mean, I've had, 3 or 4 toes dislocated, and it's just like, there's some weird people that
there's a first for everything. I'm sure that's on the market somewhere that we can get.
I would guess. I mean, I've not looked market research. No, just kidding. So, but realistically, it's so much harder. My son, when he's not done sports, has done jiu-jitsu and likes to get in there. And when he's done tournaments, man, my nerves are through the freaking roof.
Yeah.
And they are for myself before a competition, like before I go out there. But the thing is, when you're competing yourself, I mean, you know this better than anybody, as soon as you make contact, all of that goes away, because you're just so present and you're there in the moment. At least for me, that's how it's always been. Like, you don't have time to be nervous anymore as soon as you're in the match.
Right, yeah.
But watching my son, those nerves don't go away because I'm not making contact with it. That is so much more difficult than doing it myself.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that one.
But
I think I'm more nervous for my kid than I am myself at tournaments.
I concur. Yeah, absolutely.
That's amazing, man. No, I like it. All right, we've reached rapid fire, bro. It's a fun little thing I like to do with my guests, just to have some fun in it,
sure.
And just to pick your brain a little more on the fun side of things.
All right.
So my first question for rapid fire round is, what was your first job ever?
I had a paper route that was the penny saver. It was a little, you just go hand out 100-some papers. I did that. I did end up getting a job with the Cedar Rapids Gazette, where I deliver papers. That was a little more lucrative, but you had to be a little more independent. And this is way beyond your question, but when I was in Iowa, one of the benefits of being there was I worked in the fields detasseling corn in the summer. So as a kid, you can make some good bank doing that. You're tired as hell, but you can make some good money doing that.
Okay. Coffee or beer?
What time is it? Man, it depends on the time.
Okay.
It could be either. I like both.
It's 5
As you can tell, look, see this shirt? I'm trying to fat shame myself into losing weight. The shirt's a little tight, and rather than buy bigger shirts, I just wear them until I lose weight and feel more comfortable.
It's good motivation wearing a shirt that you usually wear.
It is, yeah.
All right.
It is.
Industrial or office?
Oh, industrial, 100%.
Industrial, okay.
Even though on a dollar per square foot, you make more in office. So what I mean by that is, and so it's not a financial thing. If you have a 1,000 square foot space that you're leasing, an office space that might be $20 a foot, a warehouse space is going to be $10 a foot. So since we're paid on commission, I'm making half as much by doing the same size industrial building as I am by doing the same size office.
I see.
But
Okay.
but those are my people, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair. What's your favorite rich dad lesson?
Oh shit. I think that looking at things as assets and liabilities. There's a game called Cash Flow that's based off his book, and he markets it. So it's a Robert Kiyosaki game called Cash Flow. And so we were playing this back in, it was probably 2007, 2008, before we had kids.
Okay.
And when you're playing that game, kids are a liability because they take up money. And my wife was so pissed. She's like, kids are not a liability. That is just wrong. So having assets and liabilities, that just has always stuck in my mind.
That's funny. I mean, I guess to some parents, right? Shitty parents, a kid would be a liability to them. But
from a pure financial standpoint,
yeah,
they're an expense.
Yeah, I got you, man. What is the best investment you've ever made?
It has to be the building I still own with a couple partners on Edith. That was also born out of a relationship that I built over a few years with the guy that ended up selling it to us. And it really was a grand slam because there's a couple kinds of lease templates or types, if you will. There's more than a couple, but specific to industrial, it's typically what they call modified gross, whereas a tenant, you pay your base rent every month plus your gas and electric, and that's it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times tenants prefer that because they have more certainty on what their lease payment's going to be because it's in the lease and the contract. There's another style or type called triple net lease, so where you have your base rent, but then there's also operating expenses that you pay, your CAM fees, triple net fees, in addition to that base rent. And so your base rent is set in stone, but the operating expenses can escalate. And so as a tenant, there's a little less certainty there. But as a landlord, what ends up happening is on the triple net leases, you can earn more because they're covering any increases and covering the property taxes. They're covering the building insurance, fire and casualty insurance. They're covering maybe landscaping or parking lot maintenance, things like that. Whereas in a modified gross lease, all of that falls on the owner of the building. And so, long-winded answer to your, but we'll come back around. So when this building ended up coming up for sale, I listed it, and at the same time I was open with the gentleman and said, "Hey, I think we might be buyers for this." And so all of the leases in that building were modified gross leases.
Yeah.
And they were below market. So had we just converted those over to triple net leases, we would have increased the net operating income and increased the amount of money that, essentially, bottom line, you could put in your pocket.
Yeah.
But because they were modified gross leases below market, there was even more room to bring those up. And the seller was looking for simplicity. They were looking for some cash flow from a real estate contract and not having to do any maintenance or oversight on the building. Because with 14 tenants, and at that point it was 16 tenants, you can imagine that there's repairs that need to be done. You're collecting checks, you're paying for things. So there's a lot of oversight, even though it's passive income.
Yeah.
There's still some oversight there. And so, yeah, we bought that with rents below market. We brought them up to market. Some of the tenants a lot of them had been there for a long time, and so we weren't trying to push them out. And so we gradually increased some of their rents, but we didn't transition their lease types over to triple net. We kept them at modified gross. As we got new tenants into the building, if somebody left, then we would do those leases as triple net leases.
Yeah.
And eventually, all of the leases were transitioned over to that.
Right.
And so it was just kind of got spoiled because it was like a grand slam deal. I mean, you're not going to walk into that every day.
Yeah.
So that's the best investment. And I say all that, and then it comes to mind, I think the best investment I've ever made is learning and growing. Like, was it Warren Buffett or somebody says, like, the best investment is the one you make in yourself. And I think there's truth to that, because you're not going to be around for those opportunities if you don't invest in yourself.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. Wise words from a wise man. Now let's go to the opposite side of the spectrum. What's the worst investment you've ever made?
The worst investment I ever made has to go back to the film industry. And I was dumb. I had never loaned like large sums of money to anybody. And there was a local actor I had met at an acting class in Santa Fe, and he was starting a production company. And the guy is very persuasive, and got me to invest. First, this goes back to people pleasing, and I would say I'm a recovering people pleaser because I would just say yes to everything, because I wouldn't want to let someone down or say something and then not do it.
Yeah.
And so we're talking about this production company. It's like, I got some home equity money I could tap into, but oh yeah, no, we would never do that. We don't want you to do that. Well, the next week they're like, hey man, you think you can get in, loan us 13 grand, or it was 13 grand is what it was. Mm-hmm. There was a film market is AFM, was it Santa Monica film market? Gosh, anyway, and so was it American Film Market? Anyway, it was in Santa Monica, and they were trying to go set up and get a room there. And by get a room there, you would rent rooms to put your advertising stuff in. So you'd rent a hotel room, but it would be like with all of your merch and what you're trying to pitch and projects and things. So it wasn't like, hey, we need a place to stay kind of room. It was, so anyway, the long and the short of it is, it went from, yeah, we never, do that, to like, hey, can you do that? And they didn't do a personal guarantee. They didn't put up any sort of collateral. I didn't think to ask for it because I was dumb. And at the end of the day, this goes back to, we talked about earlier, I brought up that one of the lessons I've learned from commercial real estate is if you do something with honesty and integrity and communicate, you could lose all of someone's money and not get sued. These guys lost all of my money. I lost all my money by giving it to these guys. So let me take ownership of that. It was a great learning lesson because it was such a dumb thing.
Yeah.
One of the two guys was like, Ben, I'm sorry, but it just didn't work out. We're filing bankruptcy, and I really am sorry. I'll try and make it up to you however I can. And the other guy pinned it on everybody but himself. He didn't even fucking say sorry.
Yeah.
Like, he was like, oh, it was because of this guy that was the one that was apologizing to me.
Yeah.
Versus saying like, hey man, I'm sorry, it just didn't work out. I screwed up, or it just,
no accountability. The
stars didn't align. Yeah. And so to this day, I still have a bad taste in my mouth. But it was the worst investment I've made. But on the flip side, it was the best because I've learned about collateral, personal guarantees. I've learned,
Probably one of the biggest lessons you've learned, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Let's. What's your favorite jiu-jitsu submission?
The one they tap to. No, just, oh gosh.
I like it.
Quite honestly, I like head and arm triangle quite a bit.
Okay.
If I'm on the bottom, I like hitting somebody with a Kimura, because a lot of times they're not expecting, they'll leave their arms out. I think one of my go-tos is head and arm triangle.
All right. I like it. What's the biggest risk you've taken?
The biggest risk I've taken, shit. Business-wise, life-wise, like anything?
Nothing specific. Yep.
Oh,
Anything.
Geez, man. The biggest risk I've taken, I'd say driving around on the streets of Albuquerque. But I don't know. I mean, I'm good to go. I don't know if the other person is, but I'm going to assume they are. So I need to make sure I'm squared away. No, I think I didn't really look at it this way, but just coming out to New Mexico, like when I came out here, I didn't know anybody. I didn't know. So I mean, luckily I was coming out here to go to school, so I kind of had that, but I was a very anxious child growing up, and even in my teen years and stuff. And so going somewhere where you don't know anybody was a pretty big risk. Jury's still out, but no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. All right.
No, it's worked out. Here I am, 30 years later almost.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, New Mexico, out of all places. So I get you. What is your favorite New Mexico spot?
My favorite New Mexico spot? Oh, geez. That I would have to think about. I mean, now I really am going to sound like a fatty, because I think it probably revolves around food. Well, if it's a location, I like going up on top of the Sandia Mountains, like driving up the back, going up 40 up through to Harris, and just gaining perspective over the land and the city. When I was still in college, we used to drive out up Tramway. A lot of that high desert area was still not developed, and so you could go drive up there and park on the side of the road and just look out at the city lights. When I lived back in Iowa, I used to do that with the stars. I'd drive not too far out of town, drive out of town and just sit and look at the stars, and it helps put things in perspective.
Yeah.
And so I would say that going up to the Sandias is one of my favorite spots to go to, I think.
Okay.
Just get things in perspective.
Enjoy God's creation a little bit.
There you go.
I like it, man.
There you go.
Last but not least, bro. What is the legacy that you want to leave behind?
Oh, geez, man. Somebody that, worked hard, had integrity, helped other people expand their life. And I think in New Mexico, one of the challenges we face is a scarcity mindset, to where if you're winning, it must be because I'm losing. It can't be that we're both benefiting and we're both growing. And so I think it's almost like it comes from God when you help people improve something in their life. I mean, I remember a situation where I was at a conference. It was a Tony Robbins conference, so you're working through all sorts of stuff.
Nice.
And I was talking to a gal, and I mean, at that point, I was still, I was in maybe my early 30s. I think I was still, early 30s. And we were talking about financial hang-ups or financial, what sort of emotional things we have around finances and money.
Yeah.
And this gal, she was probably in her 50s, told me the story about how her father was a grifter. He was a con artist, and how he would take her to the grocery store and basically make her shoplift, is what it is. Like, go through the checkout line and
Gotcha.
Put extra things in the cart and hide things and do things. And so from that, as a child, she still held that guilt. And the sense of her being a crook and dishonest, and it had impacted her ability to make money or earn money or have the financial life she wanted to have.
Yeah.
Because she had this hang up. And we talked through it. And it wasn't me. I mean, I was there. I was the vessel. But I said, those things belong to your dad. That's not you. You were only doing what, your father figure told you to do. That does not make you a bad person or guilty of doing it. And somehow saying that, like, I'm kind of getting goosebumps now. Like, it shifted her perspective 1,000% to like where it pulled all of that weight off of her. And so to see that sort of change happen in somebody and be present for that was like, there's no better feeling, man. And so if you can help lift somebody up, we all win. Rising tides lift all boats. That's not a new saying, but I believe that 1,000% that, if somebody else is winning, don't hate, man. Don't have tall poppy syndrome and try and break them down. Applaud them and try and expand yourself, and hopefully they also want to lift other people up, because then it's synergistic.
Yeah, I think there's plenty of cake out there for everyone to eat,
For sure.
That's a good way to put it, though. I like that. So that was my last question for you, bro. And they were all great answers, man. I'm sure a lot of our audience can learn some tips and tricks from you over the course of this podcast. But is there anything that you want to talk about that we didn't mention, or?
No, just I got to say to my wife Jacqueline, my son Isaiah, and my daughter Emmy, love you guys. My wife, she puts up with me. I'm a lot, so that's one of the things I've learned. I followed in my dad's footsteps in the sense of never being home and not paying attention to my kids. When I was young, every year for church, it was part of the Methodist Church, there was annual conference. So like literally he was never home for one of my birthdays, because he was always gone for that whole week for this conference.
Yeah.
And like an idiot, I found myself like 2 years in a row being at a conference out of state the week of my son's birthday and on my son's birthday, and just not home. I was out acting. I was doing stand-up comedy. Luckily for me, and I hope for my son, I realized that path before he was older and out of the house. My dad came to me when I was 16, and by that point I was pretty much out of the house. I was going to school in another town that was a half hour away, so I was staying in that town probably 5 days a week, maybe 6 days a week. And he was like, "Hey, I'm sorry, I realized I should have been home more."
Yeah.
It was kind of too late,
Yeah.
I was already independent, and thankfully over the last few years I've been able to build a bond with my son. Super proud of who he's becoming as a young man.
Good.
And been able to spend time and have that connection. And so again, long-winded answers to short questions. Just I want to thank my family, man.
Okay. That's awesome, man. Yeah. And doing those kind of shout-outs, man, it just shows the person you are, man, the father and husband that you are. So that's pretty cool, dude.
Thank you.
And last but not least, I mean, is there where can the audience find you, or if anybody wants to look into real estate, or looking for buildings, where can they find you, reach out to you? Yeah,
so probably the easiest way, hit me on my cell phone, 505-270-4386. I've got a website upcoming, BenNolteCRE.com. It's still being worked on. It's just about completed, actually. I finally handed it off to someone and said, I'm better off paying you than me talk about it for another year.
Yeah.
So I think they're just about done with that.
Okay.
And then Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Ben Nolte CRE.
Okay.
And I'm easy to find, man.
All right, man. And I'll go ahead and tag all your social media, your website, all that stuff on the description of this video too, so that they could just click and get there. Cause
I appreciate it. And I also started a podcast, one episode only so far, but got some big things coming. Business and Brews with Ben. Interview local business owners, mainly owners and occupants of warehouses, but try and understand their story, hear their story, just like I would do with a beer, a coffee. And rarely has anyone ever told me that what they were doing was what they envisioned. It's 99% of the time, well, that's a funny story, that's a long story. So we try and get those stories.
Yeah. That's how my story starts with my business too, so I know exactly what you're talking about. It's kind of a funny story.
I was just trying to be a hand model, and now I have high-speed warrior, I fight, I defend.
Oh, shit.
And sell merch. I don't know. There's a lot more than that. I'm just...
No, man, it's super cool. I enjoyed having you on, man. Thank you for coming along and for giving your story and letting me pick your brain a little bit, man. That's awesome.
No, thank you. Anytime, and I appreciate your flexibility. I know I had to cancel once, but
it's all good, bro.
Anything I can ever do for you, man, please let me know.
Likewise, brother. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.
To the audience, I hope you guys enjoyed another episode of Small Talk on the Mats. Until the next one, we'll catch you guys later. Peace out.